So we'll come to order. Welcome to Susan before she leaves. And farewell to her.
Goodbye, Susan. You already did it? Oh, I do have one more slight announcement.
Okay.
I'm anticipating during primary season quite a bit of counting of ballots this year. And so I'm just starting to spread the word that if anybody is interested in counting ballots that night, Marge has done it, that's for sure. But if anybody is interested in doing that, please contact me.
What's the date?
It is well, we don't know yet what the primary is, but there could be quite a few candidates, as we all know. So, and it could take some time, so I'd like to increase the numbers that we have.
Okay.
But it is a paid position. You can look forward to that. But we're spread the word too. If you know of anybody who likes to do it, I don't know. Is it fun?
It's fun. It's interesting.
It's fun.
I say it's not bad.
You have to pay attention. You do have to pay attention.
But is it still a partner system? I remember having.
It's different. I've changed it so that it's a sort and stat system, so that it's Chris has done it. So it's more accurate. You have your counter balances there.
Okay.
It's certainly something that's a very important service to the town and to individual voters and so on. So we take it very seriously.
So this will be on whatever Tuesday night the primary is.
Primary is, and then you could be called on for the, if you were willing, then I would keep you still for the rest of the year, because we will then obviously be having an election next fall, and that'll be a busy time for us. So, anybody who's interested.
Okay.
Well, I would like to volunteer a call.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'll be
The volunteer calling.
I'm interested also.
Okay, great. All right. I'll remember your name till we get there, but.
Just remember Chris, and you got us both.
Okay.
Every person.
And you would be too. Okay, great. All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Write this down, Susan, before you leave? You want us to write names and numbers down before you leave? Or you want us to?
Sure. I think I have them. Yeah. If you would collect them and send them in an email, and also maybe that would give you time to think of somebody who might be interested that I could contact.
Oh, I'd like to nominate my neighbor then.
Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. So we are in session. Welcome to Michael. Welcome Barb. Welcome Chris.
We're being filmed, correct?
And filming is going on, right, Michael?
Yes, sir.
Marge has been sworn in. And if you take a look at the agenda, we want to make a few adjustments here. Carol's suggestion was that the select board meeting will take quite a while to report on that.
Yes,
So,
because of the HR committee report, and then I got a little bit more detail on the old business, that was it, so.
okay, so what do you think? Did you say 7:35,
7:35, yeah, for the committee reports.
The report starting at 7:35. And 25 minutes, is it be enough for our committees or no?
I hope so.
You'll keep us on a reasonable schedule. Well, I want to first of all say thanks to Carol for chairing while I was away. And I guess I made those family commitments to be away on the 5th and the 1st Wednesdays of the month, because we were still meeting on the 2nd and the 4th back then. You kind of caught up with me, so I appreciate your taking over and keeping us running. Welcome back, Priscilla. The minutes for last meeting.
October 7th.
Yes, Jonathan took the minutes, right?
Please trust.
Literally.
I have them in my purse. They're ready.
Keep them handy, we might need them again. So the draft that I printed out here was with a couple of suggestions by Carol, and I don't know what's the final version of the minutes, so maybe we could make sure we have a final version.
Nobody commented other than Mary Ann and I.
Okay, do you want to read your version?
I don't have it with me. Thank you.
That's what you sent me.
There are a couple of corrections, mostly grammatical type things. The minutes approved of the September 23rd meeting, 8 in favor, it should be 1 abstention. It was plural. Under topics discussed, the current status of the budget process was reviewed and the time for when departments will present to the select board was discussed. I think that was another grammatical. Under EMSG, the police budget process has begun rather than has been begun. Approaches to fund a fire truck were discussed and was cut out along with some pros and cons. So again, it was all grammatical. A few more down the line there. PDW changed to DPW. So that was about it. I think it was strictly grammatical. And Mary Ann said that she agreed they were fine with the grammatical changes made. Does anybody? The question would be if anybody had anything else, and nobody did. So.
It occurred to me that we don't put on the minutes, or we didn't put on these minutes, who wrote them. And I'm wondering, should that be part of the record?
Yeah, we've said that before, and I forgot to do it.
Yeah, fine, and I didn't do it
I
last
didn't
time.
do it either.
Well, either that, next to members in attendance, it could just be written as, scribe or whatever next to the name for that meeting.
Okay. So the minutes with the grammatical changes that Carol has pointed out.
And the English person over there concurred with, so.
Okay.
Seamless, yeah.
So, is there a motion to approve these minutes? Second, Mary Ann. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? All right, approved. So,
I'm just curious what the status is on minutes to the town page, because you usually do that, don't you?
Right, I have not done anything.
So that probably needs to be,
So the 16th, September 16th, the 23rd, the 30th, there was no meeting.
first.
there were meetings, but we didn't have a quorum the first
So no
week.
minutes there.
The first week you were away, or the first or second.
Okay.
The 30th, there was
I did minutes, Juliana did minutes, there was a no minutes, and Jonathan did minutes.
Okay. So I'm assuming that whatever is the latest that I have an email on is the final version.
You'll have to clean this up because they were in yellow.
Yeah.
Do you want this?
Sure.
And you can note that those are taken by Jonathan.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mary Ann, can you send me the final quarterly report, please?
Okay.
Okay. Report from the select board meeting.
It was a pretty fast-moving select board meeting. The brief police chief update, which really was nothing new other than you got to get together with them and find out what things are going on. The bulk of the time was on the HR committee. I gave a brief report on the EMSG and the AABC committee status, and then the ice rink was discussed briefly, which has been back and forth on the Alstead Chronicles on Facebook, and the thought was that they'd go ahead with supporting that and let somebody flood, at least the fire department are doing, flood the horse rink out here for skating this winter. And the punch list was not discussed, so I'm going to assume that no feedback meant that it was okay with the select board.
I like that.
The other thing that I haven't heard you guys discuss in a long time was a budget printout, so that's another concern.
They were, yeah. Were they? Yeah.
Oh yeah, there were new ones. That has been communicated that they will be done on a weekly basis?
Yes.
Okay.
It wasn't taken with
I know.
a hip hip hoorays or anything, but yes, it will be done.
We had asked that done between now and the budget processing on a weekly basis, and there was a little bit of blocking on that. And then, the other thing we have, it completely slipped my mind about the, $12,000, and we can talk about that when we come down to, but I guess now's as good a time as any. The, police chief was in last week and asked for raises for this year for his staff at 4%. And the question was whether we had budgeted any money in that $12,000 for that. And if I recall correctly, the answer was no. And I'm not positive on that. I think the feeling was that, which came from him and the AABC, was that the patrol officer was just coming out of his field training, and it had been bumped up a big step, and we didn't have a clerk at that point, so there was no reason to include a raise because we didn't have anybody to give a raise to, no less a salary, so or an hourly wage. So whether or not we go forward with that, I don't know. Does anybody else have any remembrance about whether or not that was included in that 12,000? I stupidly got rid of notes from last year after the budget passed. So
when was the clerk hired?
early in the year.
Was it that earlier, or did it go a few months before we got Penny in? I seem to remember my leg
Well,
hurt
I
at
think
that
it
time.
was first quarter, maybe early second quarter.
Yeah,
I guess.
somewhere in there, I was thinking spring.
How much was budgeted for the clerk? Entire year's worth?
Yes.
Probably, yes. So there may be some room
So
there.
there should be some room there.
So,
Well, I don't think there's any question that there's room.
right, the question is somebody who's been on the job for less than a year, do you automatically, and I've never worked anywhere where you were eligible for an increase in pay until you've been there for a year.
Well,
So
sometimes 6 months.
true, I'm sure in some companies.
Well, if you go.
I'm not ruling it out, I'm just having.
Part-time to full-time, you often get a.
True,
Yeah.
true.
And we haven't been spending the police chief's wages, so, that money, there's money in their budget, should we recommend, or the select board recommend that goes forward. But the police chief just basically came in and kind of threw it on the table and got up and left.
Well,
It was,
We'll get into where the HR stuff went, because I think that plays right into that
right, well, you
conversation.
had asked for the police finance on that anyway, so that was an open item, as far as that went.
When you say police chief, you're talking about Marcello.
Yes. And then there was the other issue that came up was the highway department hours in terms of going off their winter hours, which a motion had passed last week at the select board meeting, but it was debatable whether or not that was communicated to them. And did you guys go down there today at 7?
We communicated it, so.
Okay, so they are now going to their winter hours.
Yes, just a brief update on that, because this is one of those issues that if you haven't lived here for a long time, you don't really realize how contentious the hours that the highway folks work is for some people.
And not just the people that work at the highway department.
Right. But it is, and because, I don't know, where I grew up, highway department guys were famous for holding shovels up. They did that very well, and that's what we saw. And sometimes when people see the highway department, they do see them in there, and, they're in the office or something like that, and that's it. So, the long and the short of it is we did agree, and this hopefully will help going forward, that the switch annually to winter hours will occur the second Monday of October. That's a little earlier than they generally do, but we think that makes sense. That's the first part. The second part is, Rock and I had both talked to a number of people about the start time, and then we talked with David about the start time. Start time is 6 a.m. in winter hours, probably isn't it summer too? It's always 6 a.m.
I think so, yeah.
I thought it was 7 in the winter.
6 a.m. So a lot of people feel that, well, it's dark. I mean, what can you guys possibly be doing? They do a lot of their maintenance during that time. That's when they can get trucks ready, they can get things loaded, get things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Rock and I agreed with David that the start time would not switch to 7 o'clock, it will remain at 6 o'clock. for the time being, this is something that we can always, tweak. I'm not sure that it requires, selectmen's meeting to vote on that. That to me is just time management of what hours work best. So that's gonna be the way it is. If those hours need to be adjusted throughout the winter, then we absolutely rely on David to make those adjustments accordingly. Because we have big storms that we're hearing about, that maybe it makes sense to a day before, get a later start, I don't know, whatever it happens to be, we want to make sure he had that. The other issue that's going on with David's guys, and I need to look through your emails because I suspect the answer may be written there, is they have one employee who's coming dangerously close to becoming a full-time employee. And we brought that up with him. I told him I would research the numbers and get that back to him. But we want to avoid that happening if possible. And David needs to come up with a contingency plan. If it means bringing on another part-time guy, or whatever it happens to be, to ensure that we don't end up with yet another FTE on staff. That's what he has to do. And these are things that we have to rely on our directors to do.
What about the issue over the paid lunch?
We got an RSA, which is pretty clear. It basically says if you are capable of working while you eat, I guess that's pretty much the way to put it. Same thing that you said was on your sheet you're required to hang up in your business. Then they can eat during their work. Or they can be given a half hour off for lunch. So it's really an either or, whichever way you want to do it.
Because I think by OSHA standards, you have to have a break if you work longer than 7 hours.
Yes,
Well,
maybe.
municipal do not have to adhere to a lot of those hours. They can.
I know New Hampshire's a non-OSHA state, but I disagree about the municipal part because that was true for police officers in Connecticut, and they're municipal.
Well, I'm sure we could consult with the Municipal Association for no charge and get an opinion on that, which may be the best way to go.
Chris?
Yep.
A question. Are we gonna run into any overtime? Are we gonna pay them for that half hour? Or if we're not, how are they gonna take it? What are we gonna do about that?
I think until we get an actual decision on what policy we can put in place, to me, it's David's responsibility to ensure that overtime is what we use when things hit fans. Outside of that, then you'll be able to manage your workload, manage your workers into a 40-hour week or less if they're part-time. That's just the role of a manager. Don't always like it, but it's something you have to do.
If we know there's a big storm coming, can't they work less hours the day before? Or they can work more hours? That way they can get the rest that they're gonna need to do long hours.
Yeah, there's all sorts of variations. I'm not gonna attempt to micromanage David. I'll rely on his experience.
One would assume that that's what they do. I mean, if they get up at, what hour did you say they have to start plowing?
3 o'clock.
Yeah, they're plowing all day, they're gonna at some point swap. You know, I mean,
You'd be
they're not,
surprised how starry-eyed they'd get.
that's scary.
But sometimes they depend on that winter overtime. That's where the
Oh.
truck drivers are always like, hey, I like winter to get my overtime. Everybody just lives on that overtime.
Okay.
And that's what they count on, so.
Well, we're counting on not so much of it. That's the way we've gotta do what needs to be done. That's obvious. It's not like we're putting a ban on overtime, but we expect, those hours to be well managed. And that's just an expectation, which also leads into the HR conversation.
Right, the HR conversation, they did probably, 30-45-minute presentation last night?
Yeah.
Extremely well done, in my opinion.
I agree.
Very professional.
Very professional, very detailed. You know, they stated right off the bat that they were looking for efficiencies, ways to make the town come up with some tax savings. They benchmarked with 12 similar towns. First thing they did was develop an org chart, which is behind here on the back wall. And I know I haven't had a chance to look at it. I'm not sure who else. There was some debate about whether or not friendly meals should be on there, because they do have an indirect link. The same with, supply those pool. Family meals, I guess there was a big debate with them because they are a separate, what is it, a 501c or 503b, something like that, as is the Historical Society, which isn't on there.
So here was some of the debate for a little bit of background is, should we put things on the org chart that have a financial implication to the town? And that is Historical Society. You know, we share costs of buildings and things like that. And also friendly meals, we all know about that. What is missing up here, and I want to correct it, yeah, the AABC should absolutely be on that org chart.
But they did a lot of digging into that. And Bob Quadlin did offer to come talk to this committee if we so desired. They're probably going to put the summary document on the webpage. And Tom Dowling made a point of saying that they were suggestions, not recommendations, that they were making and needed to prioritize it. Obviously, we can't do all at once, but they basically started out talking about the need for supervisor training, job descriptions, review process, et cetera, the whole bit. They compared salaries and benefits with similar towns. Our town personnel handbook was last updated in 2002, so it was very obvious that it was in need of updating. And they were suggesting implementing an employee suggestion program. Let's see. Rich Nolorenko did say that there are RSAs behind a lot of those positions on there, like the what am I looking for? The supervisor, the checklist, obviously, and some of the elected positions. The job descriptions, they wanted to include the knowledge and skill set, responsibilities, accountability, all that kind of stuff. And he felt that they needed, once they were developed, they shouldn't be stagnant. They needed to be get current and reviewed by management on a routine basis. What's nice is that, what's the name of that New Hampshire Muni organization? Is that the name of it?
New Hampshire
Municipal organization. Yeah, they have a whole bunch of board job descriptions online, which the guys included in their appendix. So there's lots of sample templates, but they have to be written. And the question was, you know, whether or not it was management writing them for the employees or the employees write them in cooperation with management. So, you know, that's something that needs to be looked at. Then Bob Quadlin went on to talk about benefits and wages, which they benchmarked. He said we compared very favorably, although there were some differences in what towns offered. They looked at holidays, vacation, sick, personal health time, life insurance, uniform allowances, long and short-term disability, dental, vision, the whole business. We fell in line with vacation, sick, personal time. We lump them together into one category, which a lot of places have started going to. It makes it a lot easier. You know, you get 20 days, how you use it, it's your call. It's a lot easier in terms of record keeping. Health insurance, Alstead actually pays 87% of the premium to Health Trust. Most of the towns around use Health Trust, which is like a consortium pool, you know, of towns so they can get a better price. We offer dental through Aflac, which they indicated most others do. No one else offered vision other than Alstead. I think it's employee pays, but there is a policy that they can, you know, pick up if they want it. Most people are using Health Trust for the disability insurance. Only 6 towns offered life insurance. The retirement is through the New Hampshire State Program. There was a mixed bag on the uniform allowance, mostly the PD and the DPW type departments that had it. One of the things they mentioned is we don't have a wage scale for each position, which is something that they thought was important. And going back to the reviews, they also thought that we needed to provide training both to the supervisors and the employees on how the system was going to work. They did state specifically that an untrained supervisor doing reviews was a liability to the town, which I thought was interesting. In terms of wages, they kept going on, and again, the towns they looked at were in the same population as us. It was hard to do apples to apples because they had no job descriptions. They had to do some guessing. They surveyed over 50 job titles, and he used an example of the ambulance. You had the whole bit going from on-call to volunteer to paid departments, and that one was a little easier because of the certs that people had to have. EMTB, you kept calling it EMT1, it's EMTI. Ours were actually a little higher than some of the other towns. The DPW supervisor was very close. They looked at cemetery, fire, general government, the whole bit. they used the heavy equipment operator for DPW people, and the full-time is actually, he said less than or greater than the average. I thought he said greater than, didn't he?
I don't have it in front of me,
Okay.
unfortunately, but it's safe to say that
There was a difference there by about 60 cents.
if there was anybody looking for like a drastic difference between what Alstead pays and other towns of
They didn't
comparable
find it.
size, it's just not there.
Yeah.
Did they give you a name to a town?
Yeah.
He had them, but they're in the book, he didn't rattle them. He may have rattled them all off, but I didn't get them all down. He did say we should be reviewing every 2 years, because the survey, is done by the New Hampshire Muni Organization. I think Linda does submit to that, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they gave you guys a summary report, a binder, and a thumb drive, didn't they? So all the selectmen got all of that, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. In order to do performance evaluations, first they need an agreed-upon a good job description, and obviously there should be meetings to discuss expectations either annually or semi-annually. And then we need the formalized review program implemented, preferably for 2016. They said it was high time the employee manual was brought up to speed. They got an example from a nearby town. It was up on the internet, so there's no issue in reviewing it. The considerations, they gave a long list of suggestions. A complete review system with job descriptions. They suggested using a time clock to record time worked. A use of revised policy and procedure manual to clarify expectations. Use of an electronic scheduling system. A use of a computer system for tracking truck maintenance. Reviewing summer-winter schedules for all employees, not just the DPW. Provide the performance review training to all employees, participate in the wage and benefits survey. They suggested the select board network for various select boards. And the one that didn't surprise me, because we briefly talked about it, but they came out and stated that we should consider hiring a town administrator for doing things like purchasing, contracts, legal work, operating systems, budgeting. And they felt it could be done with rearranging responsibilities. They have another one from another town. Which town was it? Was it Pineborough?
Can we pronounce
Are you
it?
sure?
Yeah.
I think it was Lineborough, and we'll be happy to come in and talk to the select board, and the rationale that he has is that his position is supposed to pay for itself. And the suggestion was made this could be done on a contract basis. You give him a year, it doesn't work out, let's go.
How much does that cost?
I have no clue, we didn't ask that.
So I've seen jobs like advertised between $55,000 and $75,000 for smaller towns.
You really
Bigger
think
towns,
that we recuperate 50 or 60,000?
Yep.
Yep.
I do. Because, then you have to look at the selectman's office and think of what do you need for staff in there too. How many people do you need? What are you doing? That kind of things. So, the assistant become full-time, part-time, what are you doing? But, so at the end, basically what they said, this was a labor of love and they're now asking for divorce. It was a definite story of how I spent my summer vacation. And so I think everybody was very impressed with what they did, and they were really minimal questions. So
Yeah. I thought it went great. I was really impressed by the product that they put out. I, for one, I talked to, Rock briefly afterwards. I mean, I think we're both, it's safe to say we're both in support of every one of their recommendations. It's just there wasn't anything that came out we disagreed upon. You could tell they were kind of dancing around a little bit when they got to the part about the town administrator, because it's like, so we're going to tell you guys you need somebody to help you do your job, right? Totally agree.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I was wondering, can we get someone, a representative, to come and speak to the budget committee when they're coming to speak to the selectmen, so we can all be here for a learning experience? I do not know that much about it. And I'm sure there are other people maybe in the room that do not.
About
The administration, or having an administrator for this town.
Yeah, we'll undoubtedly meet with the guy first, because we do want to have, this doesn't have to be a public meeting, but we want to be able to sit down and just sit there and ask questions and do that.
you're
We'll
the
do that
second,
first.
one who asked that.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. Sounds familiar.
Yeah. But then, yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be great to have if he's willing to. And this same gentleman has offered this before, I think before they ever even talked about it. He's not looking for a job. He just thinks it's a really, it's a great program, and why not do it? So, yeah, I just, like I said, nothing really.
Mary Ann?
So, in the HR presentation, my remembrance is our expectation was they would hand something to the select board so that the people that hadn't gotten a raise could get a raise by the end of the year. Is part of their thumb drive and all this great stuff, which is great that they did, is it in any way gonna get raises for people who didn't get raises this year?
Well, I think it takes some quick work. We budgeted that money for this year, and I think all of us are intent on making sure that what our goal was originally when we started talking about this was not to provide, from the selectmen's point of view, not to provide blanket raises, but see if it was possible to do some sort of an incentive increase.
A review like that, did they have review?
We are not there. So what we would need to do is for our, what do we have? Is it a dozen job descriptions total? Right, so we gotta go out and copy and paste from other towns and from New Hampshire Municipal Association. We gotta put together 12 job descriptions. We would want those people in those positions to review them. And this isn't.
But what's that got to do with a review? I thought they were gonna hand you,
Because,
those dorky reviews.
yeah. Oh, yeah. But
That you can download from anywhere, so
Yeah,
that wasn't provided, that wasn't
yeah.
provided. They didn't
ask
ask
it
themselves.
there.
no, they did provide samples of reviews
Oh,
from
okay.
other towns too.
Different styles.
So the point is if I sit here and say, okay, let me review whether you did a good job or not, my first question would be, compared to what? Well, where are the standards that I was supposed to meet? So I think their point was very good and very clear, is that before you do a review, you have to at least establish what the baseline is that's expected of somebody. So we can say, are you meeting it
For
or not?
next year, I can see that, but for
Right.
this year, these people have been waiting on this.
I get it, and I think for this year, we're probably gonna move a little quicker and some of this stuff. If we can get a basic job description down for everybody and rely more on the supervisors to make some judgments about whether people are doing good or bad, then they're gonna fall into that scale, and I think we can distribute that stuff this year.
Haven't most of the employees had raises?
Most of them have. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
I thought
if
they
you
got a
know.
little itty bit, I thought DPW was the only one that got. and
The
supervisors-
DPW got full, everybody
Yeah,
else, I
and
think, did the
checklists.
flat 3%.
But everybody else I thought got a smidge, and they're waiting for the
Yeah.
whatever else.
So, like I said, it's not a whole lot of time, but those guys did deliver something. I think it's incumbent upon us to try to figure out a way to get some process in for this year and then tweak it up and make it a lot better for next year.
And then where's the PD fit into that whole picture too?
I would say that they would become part of that process. Why not? And I'm not going to commit and say that I would fully support raises for everybody in the town. So we'll see where things go. But I wouldn't expect the police department to be no different than any other department.
So do I understand correctly that this is it for this committee, they're done?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we've got a bunch of good recommendations, and so now the question is who's going to implement them?
Well,
That was my next
That was
question.
one of my questions. There's something, you could put the whole list on here, or you could basically say HR committee suggestions. But I think that needs to be,
I agree.
transparent in terms of what's being done with that stuff.
Yes, could we get some volunteers for yet another HR implementation committee?
Well, can't these guys be, I mean, since they were so great at it?
They're now going south for the winter, so.
There's the internet, even down south, I heard that.
Yeah,
I mean, if we budgeted for a town manager or administrator, whatever that position is,
go ahead.
if we budgeted for that, could we dump it this on this poor unfortunate person.
Yeah, if we had money to pay him for this year, and if we could hire him,
That was the other thing with too, when you said money, grants, that person would have to
Could
be
be
somebody
every grant,
who would be
right.
going after grants.
So, before I lose my thought, I had this thought somewhere on the road somewhere. I'm sorry, I'm just out of it. Why not? Whenever we got faced with something like this in a big company, and we didn't have enough people with particular expertise, we just farmed it out to a business analyst, somebody that we hired who had some expertise in this, and said, please get this done for us in a rapid amount of time. I think to me, this is sort of business analyst work, where we may be able to find someone to say, okay, we would like you to go out and work with our supervisors, take these pre-written examples of job descriptions that fit very close, and work with the the managers and the directors to tweak them, get them in line. I think a couple weeks of contract wages for a position like that to speed this whole process along would be a really good investment. Without putting a number on it or anything else.
I like that idea of having a single individual with a very specific task.
You're a technical writer, weren't you?
So how much does it pay?
So you have to put that out to bid and all that yada yada?
I haven't even bounced that. Like I said,
okay.
that was on the road
Just thinking out
somewhere.
loud.
Oh,
I think it was
okay.
No, I had the thought before. I'm remembering that. It was between here and Keene somewhere that one popped into my head. But I think that would be a really good idea to spur this process along. I know, you leave it up to the selectmen and we'll say we'll talk about it next week at our meeting, and then we'll get some action points together by the next meeting, and then we'll probably talk about it again.
It takes forever.
Right. And then it's,
Yeah, you
As
guys,
you guys should know,
You gotta get it done.
the last two selectmen's meetings too, you've been short-staffed basically, so.
Yep.
yeah, I don't think you guys have the bandwidth to do it, to be honest.
No, yeah.
And I don't think it's within the scope of this committee either.
I agree. So, I guess that is an idea.
God, this thing was But I got the PowerPoint off the internet.
So are any other thoughts or comments, kind of looking to you guys, if we were to farm that sort of work out to try to spur the process along?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Would it be helpful to have a formal recommendation from this committee that you do that?
Not needed, but appreciated.
Which budget is it gonna come out of?
We'll figure that out.
And you need a timeline
The
too.
general government?
Yeah, well, like I said, we haven't put, I'm guessing a decent VA is not going to be super cheap, but it's not going to be super expensive, so we'll see what we can find.
You gonna try to get that done by the end of the year?
I would really like to get a good start on it, and if you can dedicate someone to it, it should not take a whole lot of time. I mean, we had to rewrite job descriptions every year or two. The places I've worked, we had to do review processes every year where I worked, and it wasn't a 6-month-long adventure.
I'm just talking out loud, honestly. Would it seem like the person doing the job, if you handed them a generic job description, fill in the blanks?
Well, Tom actually brought up a point last night about,
They know the job.
he used to do that, and then his boss told him, no, you're supposed to tell the employee what his job description is, not have your employee, because you're supposed to have your employee doing what you want to do, not what they want to do.
No, I totally get that, but if everybody,
Can it be a collaborative process?
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's why business analysts go out and they work with managers, they work with the line folks, they do that stuff, and that's
their job.
That's their job, and I agree, it shouldn't be isolated from the employee, but the employee just can't say, well, my job requires me to sit and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes for 2 hours every morning.
no, but most people won't say that.
Right,
They'll say, I'm tasked with yada, 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 yada.
right, and
Like you ask Linda about the phone bills, she'll tell you exactly who breaks them down, what happens to it, she knows what's going on.
and we all realize that if you just have the supervisor doing it, he's not gonna capture everything that employee actually
Right.
does. So, again, somebody to work, all that stuff. I don't think it's fair to ask for volunteers.
I think in this case, and I may be wrong, but why don't we start now with the employee description. This way, we're going to have an idea of how we're going to plan the job descriptions and everything else and get them involved. Granted, the supervisor and manager could say, hey, 2 hours worth of coffee, no way in hell.
I
Something
don't
like
disagree
that.
with you, I just want to make sure we have someone there in place that's going to gather that data.
Well, the manager should, their department head manager should be able to gather that and then pass it back to the committee.
They're already overworked and we got winter time coming and.
That's right, all the reason to do it now.
Yeah, exactly. This is it. I mean, we've been dragging on this for a while, I know it. But as again, I think now's the time to give the employees a couple pieces of paper or whatever and ask them to write down their job descriptions, then have them handed to the manager of that department, and then bring them to either the Human Resource Committee or our committee to look over and make our recommendations prior to the selectmen doing anything on it.
I don't disagree with the prior to the selectmen part. I think all your points are dead on. It's just a question of how they will and when they will be executed.
We give them a timeline. We hand this to the employee and say, in 2 weeks, I want your job description back in my hands. Give them a time limit.
I don't disagree.
So do you have the support from this committee that you feel you need to go ahead with?
Yeah,
implementing
I was
that?
really floating the idea out there, hoping somebody would disagree and say that I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay.
That's always good.
Okay.
But okay.
Basically, that price.
Yeah, it still has to determine whether it's cost effective, if it fits in the budget.
So,
I just wanted to find out, how is the smartphone app doing in terms of tracking?
It's being used. Have you seen any data?
I haven't
come out of
seen
it yet?
any data. I was gonna email Joel today, but I just got sidetracked and, because, yeah.
Well, he punched in the app the day that I Xerox, they were all sitting here.
What we are called upon to do now is to ensure that the American
Sorry.
Marco Rubio.
Anyway, whatever day I Xerox, the day before the postcard went off.
Yeah.
So, what is that, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
So,
okay, so where we are right now is still in the select board's report. And in this piece of it, you have the support that you feel that
I think so.
of this committee to go ahead with implementing that committee's report.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else from the select board that we need to?
I think that was it. That was plenty.
We sold the, old cruiser,
Oh,
$510.
how much?
$510.
It's still,
I'm happy with that.
it's still started, right?
Absolutely. We wrote it down here.
so when is general government gonna be talked about, the budget for general government that you didn't get to last night?
David did not
On the
get.
agenda.
Yeah. well,
Okay,
Okay.
we were told, it was last night, I was supposed to be here, which I wasn't, but
That's why we didn't.
no, you're lying. I know it's February.